Did you have an episiotomy or did you tear when you gave birth? Then this video is for you. I'm Pauli, a women's health physical therapist, and this is Beyond the V Women's Health. I am on a mission to shed light on the lack of care, the lack of conversation about these uncomfortable topics, and to create resources for you and provide help. I created this channel because no mom or woman should have to struggle when there are answers. Sometimes when we give birth, our pelvic floor muscles need to be cut, or sometimes they end up tearing. So let me walk you through a couple of steps that you should know if this was you, whether this was just a couple months ago or whether this was a couple years ago. So if you're in the couple months ago club, here's what I would say. One, you need to see somebody like me, and I'll get to that part in a little bit. The second thing is make sure that it's healing well, and this is something you can ask your doctor. A lot of times they don't always look at the actual scar, and to be honest, I don't know if I'd really want them to look either, but I'm telling you to have them look at it to make sure that it's healing correctly. Then, once it's healing correctly, if you feel comfortable doing this, I would either use your finger, have your husband help you, or use a tampon or a tampon applicator. I want you to work on using your finger or the tampon applicator and essentially massaging it. Rub on it, make sure that we are one, desensitizing it, but two, making sure that those tissues are moving really well. The third thing that I want you to do is if you can contract your pelvic floor muscles and relax them, I want you to start doing that. Doesn't matter which step you are on, if your physician hasn't seen you yet, if you haven't started massaging it yet, doesn't matter where you are, I want you to try contracting and then relaxing those muscles. If you don't think that you're doing it right, you may not be, and that's fine. But don't worry, this is why you might see somebody like me. So if this was years ago, we're gonna kind of follow some of those same steps. I wouldn't necessarily go back to your physician and say, hey, I know that you gave me an episiotomy or you stitched me up after I tore and my child is now 8 years old. Can you take a look at it? I don't mean you need to go there to do that. But what I would do is I would use your finger, a tampon with the tampon applicator still on, or your husband's finger, and start massaging that area. You might notice that it's really thick. Oftentimes the way that I explain it to my patients, or at least what it feels like to me when I'm working on someone's scar, is that, do you remember in the 90s, although I think they're coming back now, it's like that plastic braided stuff. It almost feels like half of that in size, but buried underneath some tissue. That's what it should feel like. Scar tissue should actually feel a lot softer. So if you notice that you feel that raised bump or kind of that braided thick something, I would keep working on that tissue until it softens up. And I want you to work on contracting that pelvic floor and relaxing that pelvic floor to make sure that pelvic floor is actually moving through the available range of motion that you have. And then I want you to come see somebody like me. The reason that this can become a problem is because your scar tissue might be impacting what your pelvic floor is doing or not doing. So there's been times where that scar has not allowed those muscles to contract past that point. But I've also had patients where that scar has literally held them so they can't contract at all. So the reason that you're going to be massaging this area is to break it up and to make it a little bit more supple. You're not gonna make it go away, but you're gonna make it so that it's moving a little bit better and it's not a barrier to your pelvic floors moving up or down or contracting or relaxing. The other reason I want you to be actively contracting and relaxing that pelvic floor is for you to kind of have an idea of where you're at, because maybe you feel like, oh man, I can't contract. That scar might be holding you down, literally, or maybe you can't relax and maybe that pelvic floor is actually keeping you in a position where you can't relax past that point. It just kind of gives you an idea and it lends to you showing up to your appointment to have more information. And maybe you don't even need to see somebody, but it's something that's not talked about, and so I want you to be able to know how to take care of it. I am changing the conversation on women's health, and I need your help. like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell below so you know when there's new videos. And share these videos with friends or other women that you know will benefit from this information. And for more resources, check the description box below.